Greetings, Deep Dive Podcast listeners. This is your boy, Sam Oram, coming at you with another episode of the Deep Dive Podcast. Guys, season 2 is winding down. We've had, so many weeks and episodes that have been incredible. I'm having a good time, really interacting with everybody, empowering people. I love getting the messages and emails, and we have a Facebook group. If you haven't joined, you certainly want to join the Facebook group, the Deep Dive Podcast. So we get a chance to interact there, and people give content ideas, and a lot of people want to become guests and things of that nature. So we're having a great time. I will continue to encourage all of you to join the Deep Dive Podcast family. Like, subscribe, download, share, become a part of our Facebook group. Send me an email. You can go through the website at the deepdivepodcast.live, Live. You can also leave a voice message on the website. We'll get the voice messages as well. Send me an email, just whatever's on your heart, whatever you like to share, any content ideas or anything that you think will empower you and your community. But what I want to talk about tonight in this particular episode, I want to share something that was shared to me by one of my mentors, a mentor that I had so much love and respect for. He's passed on, but his teachings and the things that he shared with me continue to permeate through who I am, continue to help me to grow and to build and to become even greater in terms of building my capacity. Some of you may have heard of Dr. Myles Munroe. But Dr. Myles Munroe is actually one of the people who I credit, if there are any accolades that I have, this is one of the people that I credit for my growth, my personal growth, my personal development. I had an opportunity to work with him personally and from afar through his teachings, tapes, and tools, but then also having a chance to meet him and sit down with him and really, delve into his mindset. He was a brilliant mind. In fact, one of the people that I thought about most when I was writing the book, The Mindset of a Champion, it was Dr. Myles Munroe, because he taught so many principles that were relevant to people who have become champions. I'm not the only one that he mentored in the past, but I tell you what, I don't know what they say, what they learned, what they felt, but for me, it was everything. What I want to talk about on this particular episode, and I'll try to be brief with this episode because I want to be concise, and I want you to write this down. If you can't write it down right now, go back and take a listen to it. But he taught me something, and I call it the 7 P's for building a successful organization. You can apply these same P's, 7 P's, P as in Paul, to building a successful life. You can apply these same 7 P's, principles, to building a successful family environment. I just think he was brilliant in how he taught these particular 7 P's. And, I just wanted to just share that with you. And I'm sharing it directly from my notes, by the way. I still have these original notes from Dr. Munroe. I went to the Bahamas on many occasions just to get a chance to sit down and pick his brain, if you will. I remember one of the first few times I went to the Bahamas to see Dr. Munroe, I had trouble getting in the country. I can't remember exactly what it was, but it was some type of customs issue or some type of issue where I was just like detained, and just like all kind of issues. I can't remember, it's been so many years ago, but paperwork or whatever it was, right? And once I got all of that sorted out and finally was able to connect with Dr. Munroe, I shared with him my experience. It's like these cats were giving me the blues. And he told me, look, if you ever come through the Bahamas again and you have any issue again, just tell them that Dr. Myles Munroe said, ... I won't tell you what he said, but also let them know that I'm coming to as a guest of Dr. Myles Munroe. So I'm like, okay, that's great. I appreciate that. Well, lo and behold, on a subsequent trip to the Bahamas, I had issues again. I don't remember again. I don't recall what it was, but some type of paperwork or something, and I had issues again. And then it rang in my head that what Dr. Munroe said, and so I told the gentleman, customs or whatever it was, say, look, I'm here. I'm a guest of Dr. Myles Munroe, and and I said, dot dot dot. Again, I'm not gonna say what I said. Man, let me tell you what, this guy, this smile that immediately came over this agent's face, the hospitality that was immediately afforded to me. And if you understand the Bahamians, they have this accent and this way of words and things of that nature. And he just became downright giddy just from the mere mention of the fact that I was there as a guest of Dr. Myles Munroe and the conversation that I had. And I never, ever had another issue again when I went to the Bahamas. I say that to say, man, that, obviously Dr. Munroe touched a lot of people in a lot of different ways. That goes without saying. He touched a lot of people in a lot of different ways. For me, again, it's personal, but I want to share with you just quickly these 7 P's. And I want you to write this down, and I'm going to try to elaborate enough so you understand how to adapt these 7 P's to your life, whether it's building a company, your family, relationships, whatever it may be. The first P, and by the way, we've talked about all of these at some point over the last 2 years with the Deep Dive podcast, but I don't think I have ever succinctly put those 7 P's together. We've talked about them all individually. So let me just talk to you about them succinctly as a unit. And the first P is purpose. We've talked about purpose ad nauseum. We've talked about purpose a lot, but your purpose, as Dr. Munroe explained it, is the foundation for everything. It is absolutely your reason for existing. Your purpose is your reason for existing. So when you start to live life, and I talked about this a little bit last week, it's like, why are you here? Why are you on God's green earth, right? What is your purpose? God gave you the gift of life, but what you do with that life is your gift back to God. And what you do with that life is your purpose. What is your purpose? If someone asks me, when they ask me what's my purpose in life is the empowerment of people. And everything that I do, from business to relationships to whatever it is, it's somewhere in there. That common denominator is the empowerment of people, because that's my purpose, right? Sometimes you get a vision, whether it's through your prayers, through dreams, whatever it is, but all a vision is just a glimpse of that purpose. A glimpse of that purpose. That thing should drive you mad. And I mean, in a good way. Your purpose should drive you mad in a good way. It should be that thing that makes you angry in a good way. It should be an idea that you just cannot let go of in a good way. That's what your purpose should be. It is the thing that you'll do for free. What is it? Let me ask you guys a question. What is one thing that you'll do for free? One thing that you'll do for free that has some relevance, of course. But what is that one thing that you'll do for free? In a lot of cases, that is your purpose. Now, if you're building a company, or if you're building an organization, or if you're building a situation where you're in a capacity as a leader, and this is one of the questions that I asked Dr. Munroe, because one of the things that I was trying to do at that particular time was to increase my capacity as a leader, right? The job of a leader is to keep refueling that purpose. It is to refuel that purpose, not just for you, but the people you are leading. It is to refuel that purpose. If my purpose is empowerment, how do I keep refueling it? Well, for one, through all of these episodes of the Deep Dive podcast, we're giving you guys information that, if you take this information to heart, you can literally change your life. You can change the lives of other people. But you have to keep refueling yourself, refueling your purpose, refueling the people around you who are your potential subjects in terms of leaders, people you're leading, I should say, right? The people you're leading, you have to refuel that purpose. A second P is passion. Man, this is something that is very important. I think it's underrated. A lot of people don't value passion the way you should. Passion actually is that internal thing, that energy, that's something in your core that is actually motivated by your purpose. That passion, I'll say it again, is motivated by your purpose. So you have a purpose. Well, you become passionate about that because, again, that's something you'll do for free. It is also a desire that's, stronger than motivation. I tell people this a lot because I've always been of the notion that I don't need to be motivated. I don't even care to be motivated. Matter of fact, don't even try to motivate me. Here's why. And I don't mean that negative, but let me explain. I am a type person that if I understand, if you teach me, you will never have to motivate me because I understand now. I get it. I see what you see. So if you teach me, you don't ever have to motivate me because I believe motivation only lasts 24 to 48 hours. You get somebody fired up. We do this in our business all the time. And, some of my business partners, they're probably listening in and some of this, it may apply to you, not in a good way, but it may apply to you. You'll come to a meeting, you'll hear a meeting, you'll do something, you get fired up for that meeting. After that meeting, you just on fire. The next day, somebody trying to call you or text you, you won't even answer the phone. 2 days after that, it's like you didn't even exist on earth. You've disappeared that quickly. Why is that the case? That's because you were motivated, and motivation to me is just temporary. It's just temporary, but education is permanent. So for me, when I say I don't want to be motivated, it's from a standpoint of just teach me what I need to do and leave me alone. I'll get it done. You don't have to motivate me. You don't have to motivate me. Teach me, right? Well, understanding your passion is very, very similar. You don't have a true passion until you found something in that purpose that you'll die for, that you'll do for free. One of the books that Dr. Munroe has that I always recommend is called The Burden of Freedom. It's called The Burden of Freedom. And I want you to check that out if you have an opportunity. It's also a brilliant write and read where you can understand what he's talking about and what I'm talking about as it relates to passion. That third P is potential. That third P is potential. Potential is equal to your purpose. Potential is equal to your purpose. Now, let me back up. I referenced a podcast that I did. I want to say it was in season 1. I reference it a lot. It's called Building Capacity. I reference it a lot because it's been the highest performing podcast episode that I have ever done. The numbers globally have been astronomical when I talk about building capacity. Well, when Dr. Munroe taught me about potential, and he said potential is equal to your purpose, that's where I got the notion of building capacity from, because it doesn't matter what you think your purpose is if you don't have the potential, as he put it, or the capacity, as I put it, to make it happen. You can think it's great, and it could be great, but at some point you have to build your potential or your capacity to make that happen. So that third P, as Dr. Munroe shared, it is the potential. For me, it is building capacity. But you have to understand, but whatever God, calls you to do, he's going to prepare you to make it happen. It's not like, he's going to say, go get them, go sick them. Here it is. No, it's there. The resources are there. You just have to have here's that word again, the capacity to sort through what you need. And as I always say, chew up the meat, spit out the bone. What do you need in order to fulfill this purpose? Well, that third thing is the potential, the capacity. The fourth thing is planning. I am a big proponent of planning, processes, strategies, being strategic in my thinking. Another one of my mentors, Dr. Cindy Trim, she is a thought leader, right? She is a humanitarian. She is a philanthropist. I hope I said that right. I always get tongue tied. Philanthropist. Yeah. Give away stuff. But being a thought leader and studying again under Dr. Cindy Trim, one of the things that she's taught me is how to be strategic in my thoughts and my planning. Very rarely do I do anything that's not planned. Very rarely. I'm very strategic in what I do, how I operate. Well, that fourth P, as Dr. Munroe put it, is planning. He even gave a proverb, a verse. If you actually read Proverbs 16, verses 1-9, it's going to talk about planning. It's going to talk about planning. Proverbs 16, verses 1-9. Never plan according to your resources. We talked about that before. You don't plan according to your resources. You want to have a plan, a vision, a purpose so big that you have to rely on God to make that happen. That's what planning is all about. Give God the praise, give God the credit, but you have to have a plan. I will give you your daily bread, which means you plan, and he will finance or resource or educate, or you fill in the blank. But your daily bread, you plan. The rest will come into play. All right. So that fourth P is very important in terms of planning. That fifth P is people. The fifth P, people. Now, here's a sticky one for me, because when we talk about people, it's good and bad. It's good and bad. The best thing about what I do is the people. And the worst thing about what I do is the people, or are the people. Y'all know what I'm talking about, right? People can be so uplifting and so motivating and so inspiring that it gives you life. But people can also be so negative and frustrated and disillusioned that it will drain you. You have to build your capacity to a point where you understand that you have to surround yourself by people who have a vision, who seek greatness. You didn't necessarily have to be great yet. Just the fact that they're seeking to become greater. Nobody's ever, born to be great by themselves, because you can't fulfill your purpose by yourself. You have to have people that's a part of your circle. But what you have to be cognizant of, what you have to be aware of, is how those people affect your life. How do those people affect your life? Either people are going to add something to your life, they're going to subtract, they're going to multiply, they're going to divide you, whatever it is. How do people affect your life? You should choose your associations based on your destination. Let me say that again. You should choose your associations based on your destination. Baseball players shouldn't be, practicing with football players if you're trying to be a baseball player. I'm just using that loosely, but you understand what I mean, right? Read John chapter 7 about people. So, yeah, people are tricky. You have to be very careful. I talked about in last week's episode just being aware in terms of how you creating your future. Part of being aware is understanding the people that you associate with. Sometimes it's better to disassociate with people when you're talking about being great. You know that. You already know that. What I chose to do, and this is a personal thing, I don't necessarily disassociate with people, but what I refuse to do is allow them to affect me negatively in terms of what my goals are. So if I want to cut up with some of my old friends, or that, so I have a lot of friends that they lack vision, they lack purpose, all these things that we talk about, they just not going to do it. If they could get a 6-pack of beer every Friday out of their paycheck, if they can go to the strip club, just do something crazy, they good to go, right? I don't dismiss them because that's how they choose to live. That's fine. That's how you choose. We still gonna be buddies. When I want to hang out and do whatever, I'll hang out and do whatever with you. But here's the thing, I'm not going to allow you to prevent me from being great. No, no, no. That's where I draw the line, right? So sometimes you have to choose your associations based on your destination. And sometimes you have to actually dismiss people from your life if they're going to affect you negatively in terms of your goal. I tell people, if you can't change your friends, then change your friends. You think about that, okay? That 6P is persistence. The 6P is persistence. Lord, this one is deep. That persistence, because let me tell you something. Every vision will be tested for authenticity. Are you really, really serious about this particular thing? Are you really serious about this purpose? Because I'm going to tell you something. You're going to be tested. That vision is going to be tested. That purpose is going to be tested for authenticity. If you're not serious about what you're doing, you're going to go through hell because you will be tested. As soon as you make a decision to be great, expect all of these things to happen. I don't know why it's the case. It just happens that way. It just happens that way. So that vision, that purpose, your mission, your goal, creating that future, all of those things will be tested for authenticity. You're going to have people that try to bring you down. You're going to have people that's going to talk negatively toward you. You're going to have people that's not going to be happy for you. You're going to have people that's going to actually try to prevent you from being great. I remember when I started coming up in business and, started understanding some of these principles that Dr. Munroe and others were teaching me. And I started to live these principles. And I noticed that a lot of the fellas, they didn't want me, and some of my business partners and my friends, they didn't want me around their wives. They didn't want some of my business partners or friends around their wives or their girlfriends. And it took me a long time to really understand this. The reason they didn't, and then some of this was subconscious, but the reason they didn't want us around them is because we were a constant reminder to their wives of what they were not doing as a husband, as a spouse, as someone that's 100% or supposedly 100% equal. I said 100 intentionally, 100% equal. We were a constant reminder as to what they were not doing, right? That's what's going to happen when you start to grow. You're going to develop enemies because people don't like their lack to be exposed. That's okay. It just shows that you're doing something great. That means you're growing. You're doing something. You're becoming that example. Hopefully they'll humble themselves enough to say, hey, look, what do I need to do to be great as well? As opposed to going into their corners and it's not that we want your wife, is we want to show your wife how a queen is supposed to be treated. That's all. That's all we want to show her how it's supposed to work. Now I got rules. I got relationship rules. Y'all think I had them rules, huh? I got relationship rules with the next wifey. I'm talking junk now. With the next wifey, I got rules. I buy the houses. I buy the cars. Here's this black card. You can do whatever else you want. Go where you want. Buy what you want. Do what you want. Travel as you want. Because you are a queen. But let me just get these houses and cars. Why? Not because you can't, but because I just want to surprise you with the brilliance of these gifts. That's all. That's all. That's what it's all about. That's what most people, men, don't want their wives to see when we come. But guess what? We coming anyway. When you're persistent, that number 6P, when you're persistent, you're going to create enemies because your growth will become glaring and haters hate, right? That's what you have to understand. It's going to be tested for authenticity, guys. You're going to be tested every single day. Every day there's another challenge. But guess what? You're going to get through it anyway because what? You're persistent. And the last P is to pray. It is to pray. You have to sometimes go to the source of that vision. And that source is your spiritual reserves. When you're being beat up and being tested for authenticity and all of these things that could go wrong and will inevitably go wrong, then you have to pray, because that's going to give you the ability to tap into your spiritual reserve. You're going to need something that's greater than you. Yeah, I talk about building capacity and I talk about the value of building capacity, but at the end of the day, you still need something greater in a lot of cases. And that is that spiritual reserves, which is the prayer. All right. So make sure you pray. So again, just to recap those 7 P's as stated by Dr. Myles Munroe: understanding your purpose, of course, is number 1. Excuse me, your passion, which is number 2. Your potential, which is number 3. Number 4 is planning, very important. Number 5 are people. Number 6 is persistence. And then number 7 is to pray, or prayer. These are the things, guys, if you can incorporate that into your business ideologies or goals, your personal life, your professional life, your relationship, your whatever it may be, all of these principles apply. Okay, all of these principles apply. We just have to make sure that we apply them. A lot of people want to make money. Well, let me tell you something. Money follows passion. Let me say that again. Money follows passion. So guess what? If you don't have any passion, which means you don't have a purpose, you don't have a passion or purpose or persistence or a plan or praying or all of these things that we talked about, you ain't going to have any money. You're not going to have any, because money follows passion. Passion follows purpose. Purpose follows vision. Vision follows persistence. Persistence follows prayer. All of these things. God's plan is perfect. God's plan is perfect. It's us that muck it up, right? His plan is perfect. But if you want money, got to be passionate about something. You can't be casual about it. God says, show me the problem, because I am the solution. Show me the problem. Show him the problem, because he is the solution. What is the problem? For me, I don't even call things problems. I call them challenges. I don't even want to give that much power to say it's a problem. It's just a challenge, something to figure out. Interestingly enough, I've shared this before as well. So you guys know I'm telling the truth when I say Dr. Munroe inspired me in so many ways. But one of the things that he said in one of his talks to me is that you want to be used. And I just flat out asked the question. In fact, I was rebellious against that particular thought. I'm like, nah, I don't want to be used. I don't want to be used. I don't want to feel used. I don't any of that stuff. But then he went on to explain, and he summarized it basically by saying, if people don't try to use you, they view you as useless. They view you as useless. And I thought about it. I'm like, man, that's kind of deep. I mean, think about it. If somebody never asks you your opinion on anything, they probably don't think you have an opinion on anything. They may view you as useless. That's kind of deep when you think about it. It took me a long time to really, absorb that particular thought from Dr. Munroe. But as I've gotten older and understand a lot better, it's absolutely the case. That's why you're tested for authenticity, because people are going to try you. Okay. God is not going to allow you to see anything that you can't have. If you've seen it in a vision or a prayer or whatever it may be, then you have the absolute capacity to make that thing happen. You just have to continue to follow these 7 P's and it will become a reality. But you got to go through, we talked about this and again, another episode, but that planting phase where you're laying the foundation. You're laying the foundation, and you have to go through that waiting phase where you have to wait for that foundation to solidify and start to grow. And then, and only then, when you'll recognize the harvest. Those things are very important. Okay. So, don't quit, stay in there, stay persistent, do the things that you need to do. Keep going, keep going, keep going. it will happen. All right. So with that, guys, I wanted to share these 7 P's as I learned them directly from Dr. Myles Munroe. I shared this with you directly from my notes. I still have. I've shared these with people all over the world. It has helped people immensely. Hopefully you see a value in this particular episode. Go back and listen to it again. Jot those 7 P's down and continue to grow. And speaking of value, next week's episode, I think it's next week's episode, I'm going to talk to you a little bit about value and creating that value. Because again, I won't say next week. I'll just say in a future episode. It won't be too long, but because here's the importance of it. What I'm trying to do with these last few episodes is get people to grow beyond the current circumstances of the pandemic, the inflation, economic situation, political situation. I'm trying to get people to grow beyond that, become bigger. Part of doing that is understanding how to create value for yourself and to create value for other people. Some of you know, a lot of you know that I'm a big fan of the Alabama Crimson Tide football team, college football team, coached by Nick Saban. And one of the reasons that I'm a big fan is not just because of the football. It's much, much more than that. I studied people like Nick Saban. Remember, I talked about the book, The Mindset of a Champion. I study champions, all of them. I studied people like Nick Saban. I studied people like Rick Pitino. He had a book out years ago. Been so long, I had the cassette tapes. That tell you how long ago it's been. But Rick Pitino has a series out, or had, I don't know if it's still out, called Leadership. Nick Saban, John Wooden, these people. But the one thing that I really, really admire, or 2 things about Nick Saban as a leader, is with his football team, it's not about just the X's and O's of playing a football game. He talked about how he want to make sure his team, his players, create a value for themselves at the next level, whatever that next level is. It could be as a real estate professional. It could be in the NFL. It could be whatever it is. But he wants to help the players create value for themselves at that next level. I admire that. That's why I'm all the time studying Nick Saban, because he's teaching principles of leadership that has nothing to do with football. You have to do something very similarly where you are creating value for yourself for that future, whatever that future is for you. The second thing that Nick Saban talks about in terms of practice and preparation, we've all heard the phrase practice makes perfect. Well, Nick Saban's thought behind that is this: you don't practice to become perfect. You practice until you just can't get it wrong. You just can't get it wrong. You practice so much that you just cannot get it wrong. It has become a part of you. That's deep, guys. That's deep. Remember, we talked about that 6P, persistence. Well, that's where this comes into play. You don't practice to become perfect. You practice to the point where you just absolutely cannot get it wrong. All of these things, guys, will help you be great. So again, I know I've been a bit longer with this episode than I wanted to, but hopefully you got some information from it, some jewels from it, some things that you can apply to your daily lives, your relationship, your family, your business, whatever it may be. All right. So let's get out of here for tonight. I thank you again for joining me on this episode of the Deep Dive Podcast. Don't forget to like, subscribe, download, and share. We don't just say that, guys, just to just to say it. We really need you to do that. The way the system is, and YouTube and Facebook and all these social media platforms, there are algorithms that will allow us to be even better if we have people who follow and subscribe and do all of these things. So we ask that you do that to support the podcast so we can continue to expand the podcast to help you, in terms of what it is that we're doing. All right. So thank you again, everybody, for joining me on this episode of the Deep Dive Podcast. Let's continue to be great. Let's continue to do these things that we talked about. And again, I'll see you on the beaches of the world. God bless.